Welcome to another Silicon Bites, and thank you to everybody who's helped support the channel, especially through Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee. Your generous support has made it possible for me to produce not only the full-scale interviews that we continue to do at the same kind of frequency and intensity as before, but also put out these daily news summary, these news bites as well. Your support is massively appreciated. Today, we're going to be looking at what could be a trend of the new careless smoking issue that Russia has been experiencing through the course of this full-scale war. Careless smokers have apparently caused extensive damage to Russian strategic infrastructure, fuel refineries, and military complexes. Those damned smokers. If this was a real issue, then Russia would ban all smoking in public and maybe even the sale of tobacco. Well, there's no sign of them doing that. But of course, it has launched a lot of extraordinarily hilarious memes. And are we seeing a new manifestation of the careless smoker epidemic? An explosion Sunday forced the crew of a Russian oil tanker to evacuate their vessel. The incident, which occurred at a port in northwest Russia, is apparently being investigated, and there is as yet no hint being made by the authorities of sabotage. But would they really admit to this? As it would be hugely embarrassing for Russia's leadership to acknowledge that that had taken place. Russia's Federal Agency for Sea and Inland Water Transport wrote on Telegram that an explosion took place in the engine room on the Koala ship in the Ust-Luga port west of St. Petersburg on Sunday morning. Other reports suggest three separate explosions. The ship was allegedly carrying 130,000 tons of heavy fuel oil, but it is not thought that the explosions and partial sinking of the vessel had resulted in any kind of spill of the cargo or leak of oil products. The ship is also not thought to be imminent danger of fully sinking either, though it may well be out of action for some considerable period of time. The appropriate agencies are investigating the incident, it was announced, and the ship's condition would be inspected. The Koala, built in 2023 and flying the Antigua and Barbuda flag, arrived at Ust-Luga on Thursday. So this is a relatively new vessel, which one would not expect to experience such a catastrophic incident. It is not of the same vintage of the Shadow Fleet vessels, some of which are 10, 15, 20, or even 30 years old. There could, of course, be multiple potential causes, but each one of them would be a concern to the Kremlin. Sabotage would be the most obvious threat under the circumstances. See our episode yesterday of Silicon Bites about the most effective Ukrainian sanctions on Russian oil revenues. That is, sanctions inflicted by drones and other offensive capabilities. But other causes could be poor technical maintenance or a mistake by undertrained staff. Either of these issues would be a concern to the Kremlin and the operation of its substantial fleet, including the components of it described as the Grey Fleet. But such mistakes are becoming increasingly likely as professionals and trained engineers are drafted into Putin's pointless war and are treated as low-value cannon fodder. Accidents are becoming a regular occurrence. In December, two tankers carrying oil were wrecked in the Black Sea, causing a massive spill of fuel that is still washing up ashore. In January, the US designated more than 180 Russian ships to be part of Russia's Shadow Fleet, exporting crude oil despite Western sanctions. It's worth noting, however, that the Koala, the ship that just experienced a massive unscheduled engineering snafu, is not on the list. The authorities are at pains to ascribe the incident to an accident rather than malicious design. At the Ust-Luga port, a human-caused accident occurred on the Koala tanker during engine startup, resulting in damage to the engine room. The tank is anchored at port, the Russian authorities claimed. In January, Ukraine's security services have also claimed to have used drones to strike a fuel terminal at Ust-Luga. So these facilities and the ships that use them are considered a valid target by Ukraine. Through Ust-Luga, Russia sells oil and gas with the help of its shadow fleet, say Ukrainian authorities. The koala experienced this incident in the Russian port of Ust-Luga in the Leningrad region, and some sources talk of multiple explosions locating on the engine room of the ship. The crew on board consisted of 24 people, including 4 Russians, 8 Georgians, and 12 Indonesians. Apparently, 130,000 tons of fuel oil had been loaded onto the tanker during the night, and 3 powerful explosions were heard in the engine room as the vessel was preparing to depart. According to Russian media, the crew managed to make it ashore, but the ship's engine room began to flood. By Monday morning, the vessel had run aground at the stern. Boom barriers have been erected around the ship in an attempt to limit a slick from the cargo on the ship from spreading. Russian authorities claim no leaks and no casualties. Meanwhile, at completely opposite ends of the country, a Chinese bulk carrier also suffered an accident near the coast of Sakhalin on the night of February 9th. The vessel sustained a hole and ran aground. According to Russian reports, the bulk carrier Anyang 2 was carrying 56 tons of diesel fuel, 706 tons of fuel oil, and 1,000 tons of coal. At the time of the incident, the vessel had 20 crew members on board. Finnish Prime Minister Petteri Orpo stated on the social media site that Finland is closely monitoring developments and has heightened its oil spill response readiness as a precaution. Given the proximity to the Gulf of Finland, any environmental consequences of the koala incident must be extremely worrying. Tommi Valtari, field commander of the Finnish Gulf Coast Guard, said that Finland had sent an inquiry to Russian authorities regarding the incident, but had not yet received a response. Typically, we do not get replies to such inquiries, Waltari noted. Well, this is a short episode, but it starts up a curious trend of Russian ships experiencing mechanical cataclysms. Whether by accident or design, it is to be welcomed, of course. And we'll keep our eyes open for any repetition of such incidents that will considerably harm Russia's war economy.